In search of the wild horses of Missouri. Yes, Missouri has wild horses, specifically in Shannon County, which is located in the Ozark Mountains. Even more specifically, the horses are roaming areas in the Ozark National Scenic Riverways. This national park was created in 1964 by an act of Congress to protect the Current and Jacks Fork rivers. It is a premier recreational area encompassing over 80,000 acres. People enjoy camping, hiking, canoeing, kayaking, tubing, fishing, and horseback riding. It is estimated that over 2 million people visit the area annually. The rivers are fed by well-known springs such as Alley Spring and Round Spring, and the area is dotted with many limestone caves. The park has several historical sites, including the Alley Spring Roller Mill, the Button Rock School, and the Walter Klepsig Mill, to name just a few. A beloved aspect of the park are the wild horses. However, they weren't always appreciated. In fact, in 1990, Art Sullivan, who was the park superintendent at that time, decided that the horses were a non-native species and decided to remove them. The National Park Service started corralling them in elaborate fencing, offering them to buyers at $500 a head. This started a public uprising. The Wild Horse League was loosely formed. An attorney joined the effort, as well as several Missouri congressmen. An 8-year legal battle ensued. What were the grounds to preserve the horses? It is simple. Wild horses are cultural resources. As such, cultural resources are protected in the National Environmental Policy Act and even national park laws and guidelines themselves. The local lore maintained that the horses were left behind during the Great Depression when people had to leave the area to find work. However, historical records dating back to the 1700s mentioned wild horses, validating their historical significance to the people of the area. When this evidence was presented to the court, along with a petition signed by over 1,000 people, the court ruled in favor of the Wild Horse League. The Park Service appealed the decision, and unfortunately, that decision was overturned. The Wild Horse League appealed the decision to the Supreme Court of the United States. They refused to hear the case. It was time for serious action. On October 8, 1993, at the National Park Service administrative offices in Van Buren, 3,000 people gathered to protest the removal of the horses. 500 of them arrived on horseback. The convoy was over 8 miles long in this remote area. On this occasion, Superintendent Sullivan agreed to halt the removal pending a legislative solution. Congressman Immen introduced the Ozark Wild Horse Protection Act on January 4, 1995. This was signed into law by President Clinton on November 12, 1996, part of the Omnibus Parks and Public Lands Act of 1996. Today, the horses remain protected. Their number is not to exceed 50, and their management is a mandated collaboration between the Wild Horse League and the Ozark National Scenic Riverways. The Wild Horse League incorporated as a nonprofit in 1994 as the Missouri Wild Horse League. Jim Smith, one of the original members, remains as president of this organization. He owns and operates the Cross Country Trail Ride, one of the most popular riding facilities in Missouri, boasting almost 3,000 stalls, a restaurant that seats 1,800 people, and an indoor equestrian arena. This is the headquarters of the Missouri Wild Horse League. It is located in the county seat of Shannon County, the town of Immen. There are 600 full-time residents in this remote, quaint town. The league itself conducts a yearly soft roundup to maintain the herd size to governmental standard of 50. Captured horses are sold for a small adoption fee. Once gentled, they are known to make very good horses. One year, some of the horses who frequent Echo Bluff State Park figured out how to open the lodge doors. They had to be removed as they became a public nuisance. Jim Smith told us that there are 7 herds around Shannon County. Most online sources cite 4 herds: Round Spring, Broadfoot, Shawnee Creek, and Rocky Creek. Mr. Smith maintains that there are 2 herds at Round Spring, one that frequents Echo Bluff State Park, and a small one at Grassy Creek. Larry Norris, an avid local photographer, told us that there are currently 3 horses who roam Grassy Creek: a stallion, a mare, and their foal. However, wild horses are roamers and can even change their herd affiliations. Both stallions and mares get roving eyes. As you have probably noticed, there are a lot of white horses in all of the Missouri herds. According to Mr. Smith, a contrary Appaloosa stallion left his owners and joined the wild horses. They didn't want him back, the people, so there is evidence of his spotted genetics. Horse color genetics in general are quite complicated and not even fully understood. Dr. Sponenberg from Virginia Tech, an equine geneticist, told me that all the white does not indicate inbreeding. Inbreeding results in widespread health issues and finally genetic collapse. The gray gene, which fades base coat colors to white, is very dominant. A gray gene cannot be hidden, which is why there is so much visible evidence of white. Foals often are born with their base coat color, but then they turn gray and finally white. A white horse will most likely produce a foal that will turn white with age. So, how do you find these beauties? People who float the rivers have actually seen them, but if you are visiting the area to find them, then an active photographer named Tim Layton has actually written a field guide which details instructions. You can download this field guide from his website. He rates the herds according to how easy they are to find. He rates the Shawnee Creek herd as the easiest, the Round Spring herds as second easiest. In third place is the Broadfoot herd, and if you are brave and adventurous, the Rocky Creek herd is fairly difficult and more apprehensive of human visitors. In other words, they might take off. Mr. Layton cautions that the road can be rough. You should be very careful if you are going to cross a creek bed. If water levels are high, there is definitely risk in trying to cross. Check with the park staff for any known flooding. For some of the herds, high boots are recommended. Bugs, including ticks and chiggers, and even snakes, lurk in high grass. Like every herd of horses, the Missouri herds have numerous photographers who regularly track out to find and to photograph them. It is possible to find all 4 herds in one day. Mr. Larry Norris, whom I follow on the Missouri Wild Horse League Facebook page, recently achieved this feat. Highway 19 is the main highway down through the Ozarks, north to south. The first herd that a traveler would encounter are the round spring horses. Driving southward from Salem, I myself would turn off first at Echo Bluff State Park and drive around to find the wild horses, including an area called Sinking Creek. When I stayed at the lodge, I was told that they are seen there just about every day. Park personnel can advise you of prime spots. Getting back on Highway 19, I would continue southward towards Immen, turning to the left at the Round Spring Campground sign. Before that entrance, you might actually find the horses near the big bridge. Once in the campground, I would drive down to the river by the group campground. As you head south towards Immen, the next herd to find would be the Broadfoot herd. Turn left at County Road 205. You will be traveling about 5 miles to get to their field. Do not make any left turns off of this main road, but stay left when you encounter a definite Y in the road. There are 2 of them. This route will end in the large field by the river where the herd can usually be found. As we continue on to the Shawnee Creek herd, we would backtrack to Highway 19. Take a left onto Highway 19 and continue south towards Immen. Take the left past the bridge onto Highway 106. There are 2 areas to check. Left at 211 to the Shawnee Creek campground fields, and then backtrack to the other side of 211, which turns into the V Highway. This leads to the Two Rivers campground where there are more fields. I have now mentioned several fields. This whole area, before the federal government created the scenic Riverways National Park, was farmland. To this day, individuals can take out farming permits from the government. Fields are planted in hay and baled, making these areas great forage areas for the horses. Mr. Layton points out, though, that the horses often head into the wooded areas for privacy, rest, and shelter. He encourages walking around the perimeters of the fields, peering into the woods. He himself has easily hiked 5 miles into the terrain looking for the horses. First-timers might benefit from a guide. To find the last and most challenging herd to view, the Rocky Creek herd, I would head to the Klepzig Mill. Backtracking on the V Highway, take a left on 106 again, veer right into the H Highway, and then take a left on N Highway to the mill past Rocky Falls. Take Highway N to the end of the pavement and make a left. When at the mill, park in a small parking area and hike the trail, checking the 3 fields beside the trail. They are most likely to be in the 3rd field. From Mr. Layton's descriptions, this area can be very tricky for the novice. By all means, use a map. National Geographic produces highly detailed maps available for purchase. I have been told that GPS systems are not overly reliable in this area because cell phone use is limited. The Missouri wild horses have quite a heritage, don't they? Please remember that it is against the law to feed or to pet a wild horse. General guidelines for all wild horses state that humans should maintain a distance of at least 50 feet. If you ever encounter one in a tight space, like along a wooded trail, step to the side and do not make eye contact. I have actually waved my arms in front of me to warn them away. They look deceptively gentle, but there are plenty of people who've been kicked and bitten. I know of a very experienced wild horse photographer who had a wild horse come up to him with loving eyes. He told me that he knew better. However, he reached out and barely touched the mare's nose. She did a quick 180-degree turn and double barrel kicked at him. Fortunately, he was able to dodge himself to safety. I tell this story to re-emphasize, yield not to temptation. They thrill the soul from a distance, and hiking to find them is also good for the body. Have fun.